There are days you don't get abandoned with a bang. You get crossed off quietly like your presence would ruin the picture. Tonight our guest is Dashel in Savannah. He was told not to come to his sister's wedding because it'll be awkward. And then he stayed home and saw a clip on the news that made his hands start shaking. Dash, take us back to that night you came home when you realized your whole family was preparing for a wedding. They just weren't preparing a place for you. Dash, thank you for joining me tonight. I know telling stories like this isn't about putting anyone on trial. It's more like bringing a wound into the light so it stops getting infected. Can you walk us through your life and that moment from the second you got home when it hit you? Everyone was getting ready for a wedding, just not with you in it.
Hi, and hello to everyone listening. Thank you for having me on tonight. I'm not used to talking about private things in front of a lot of people, but I think there are some things, if you keep them locked inside, they only wear you down. I'm going to try to tell it clearly, exactly the way it happened. I think I was born already used to fixing what's broken. A door sticks, I fix it. A railing cracks, I reinforce it. A step rots out, I replace it. Some days that's a gift, but other days it feels like a curse because my family looks at me the way they look at a toolbox: pull it out when you need it, put it away when you're done. I restore old houses for a living here in Savannah. That day, I got home late. Dusk had already settled in. I'd spent the whole day wrestling with Marlowe House, an old place near Jones Street. The subfloor was soft, boards warped, that mix of mildew and old paint in the air, and this faint, sweet smell like cherry cough syrup caught somewhere in the wood. I made it back to my little craftsman cottage, kicked off my boots body, aching my brain still stuck on a window frame that was out of square and needed a clean trim to sit right. I barely got to enjoy a few minutes of quiet before my phone started buzzing nonstop. At first I ignored it, figuring it was client emails or a supplier. I scrolled half-heartedly, my head still on floorboards, until a notification popped up: Brielle's face, my sister half covered by a thin veil. Caption: final, fitting for the big day. I just froze in my kitchen. Brielle. In a wedding dress, I couldn't remember hearing a single word about a wedding. No date, no location, no engagement party, nothing. I kept scrolling. Each photo hit like a small punch: steady and cold cousin Callie grinning in a sea blue bridesmaid dress, Aunt Beth arranging white peonies, my mom's hand, her wedding ring flashing as she held stacks of invitation samples, and then Colton with his arm around Brielle, both of them smiling like their lives had never seen a storm. The comments were packed, so excited to celebrate. The venue looks gorgeous, can't wait for your big day. Names I hadn't seen since high school, everybody knew about the wedding except me. My brain went into this automatic search. Did anyone tag me? Mention, dash, say, wish you were here? Nothing. Then I saw a picture that dried my throat out. A table covered in envelopes, hand addressed, stacked neatly, ready to be mailed. I zoomed in, looking for Dash, looking for Dashel. It wasn't there. My heart slowed down heavy like anger being pressed flat. And then came the final nail, a shot from the cake tasting. Mom, Dad, Brielle, Colton, 4 of them standing close, white shirts, bright teeth like an ad. A perfect picture. Except for one thing, I wasn't in it. Not just missing like I didn't exist. Even the comments didn't joke about me being busy. Nobody said I was working. Nobody wrote wish Dash could make it. I wasn't forgotten. I was erased. I backed away from the screen and braced both hands on the counter. The house was so quiet I could hear the wood settle, one of those sounds you only notice when everything else stops. And that kind of hurt wasn't new. My whole life, I've been the guy they call when something needs fixing. Brielle's car broke down on Norway 16. I drove 2 hours with jumper cables. Brielle needed someone to co-sign a loan for her coffee shop. 22 grand I signed. The shop failed, creditors called, and I was the one who made them stop calling Brielle. I've patched more holes in my sister's life than I've patched in old houses. But this wasn't a hole you patch. This was a clean cut. I stood there and started digging through old conversations in my head the way you dig through rotten wood looking for the crack. What did I miss? Was there a warning sign? Was it because I asked Colton a couple hard questions at Thanksgiving about debt, about credit? Or because I've never fit neatly into the Mercer family picture, always with dust on my hands, paint on my shirt, standing a little off frame? The more I thought, the heavier the silence got. Then my phone buzzed again. Not a notification, a call. My mom's name lit up the screen. I stared at it for a long time, caught between wanting to pick up and demand the truth and wanting to let it ring until it died. But before voicemail kicked in, I swiped to answer anyway because there was a part of me that was scared of something worse, that if I didn't pick up, I'd start believing I truly didn't belong in that family.
Hearing you say erased, it hits right in the throat. When your mom called, could you still keep your voice normal?
I stayed calm the way you stay calm when you've practiced staying calm your whole life. But inside, I felt like a rotten board getting stepped on. Nothing snapped right away, it just started creaking, and you could tell it was about to give. I said, "Hi, Mom," and I waited to see whether she'd call me her son or talk to me the way you talk to someone you borrow patience from. "Hi, Mom." On the other end, there was a tiny pause, just a beat, but it was enough for me to hear her choosing her words. Then my mom's voice slid into that soft, sweet tone she uses whenever she wants to turn something wrong into something you're not supposed to get worked up about. "Dash, honey, I was just thinking about you. How's work been?" I stared at my phone screen like it was a crack in a piece of wood. I didn't follow the script she handed me. I swallowed hard and went straight at it, my voice lower and firmer than I expected. "I saw Brielle in a wedding dress online. Do you want to tell me what's going on, Silence?" I heard her clear her throat, such a familiar sound, like she was smoothing a tablecloth before setting a plate down, trying to make everything look fine again. "Oh, I was going to call you. It's just, Brielle figured you were busy. That Marlowe house project, right?" I let out a short, dry laugh. No humor in it. Being busy isn't the reason. Did my invitation get lost? Or did nobody send one? My mom's voice caught for a second, then sharpened. I could hear the real her starting to push through the sugarcoating. "Don't make this about you, Dash. You know your sister's sensitive. And Colton, he really values family. He just wants everything perfect for Brielle, especially after a hard year." Heat climbed up my face. I kept it down because I knew the second I flared, she'd have her excuse to label me intense. Perfect doesn't mean cutting your own family out of the wedding. She started stacking explanations the way you paint over rotten wood, layer by layer, smooth and empty. "You're always busy. Brielle's afraid you won't get along with Colton. You ask too many questions. You make people uncomfortable." I knew exactly what she meant. Last Thanksgiving, I asked Colton about those get-rich-quick plans of his, asked him point blank how he planned to pay off his student loans. I didn't yell. I didn't pick a fight. I just asked the way I always ask when I see a blueprint drawn wrong. If you don't fix it now, it's going to collapse. But in my family, asking questions is ruining the mood. I took a breath and forced my voice steady. "Tell me clearly, who decided I shouldn't be there, Brielle or Colton?" Another silence, longer this time. Then my mom spoke like she was searching for the exact phrasing that would let her avoid admitting the truth. "Colton just wants everything to go smoothly. It's a big wedding. A lot of guests from his company and some important people. Brielle wants to focus on her day. No stress. She's afraid if you show up, things will get complicated, awkward, the words people use when they don't want to say you don't belong in the picture." I let her keep talking. She drifted into Brielle's coffee shop, into the kids, into how hard this year has been for Brielle. And while she talked, a number lit up in my head, clear as day, $22,000. I spoke slowly, like I was driving nails straight. "Mom, that coffee shop loan, I co-signed it. When it went under, I paid it. $22,000. Nobody thanked me. Everybody just acted like it was my job to help your sister." On the other end, my mom let out a long, tired breath, like I was the one bothering her, not the other way around. "You always keep score, Dash. You're the strong one, the responsible one. When Brielle needs help, you help. That's what family does. That's what family does." I stood in my kitchen with sawdust still on my hands, and suddenly I understood that line in a different way. Family is the place where people get used to taking from you without asking. I asked the question I'd been swallowing for too long. My voice didn't rise. It was just bare. "When do I get to be family, Mom?" "When you need a check, or when you need a smile for the camera." My mom immediately softened her tone like throwing a blanket over a fire. "Don't dramatize, Dash. I just want Brielle to have her day. You know how she is. Let your sister have her day. She said it like it was the morally correct thing, like my absence was a gift, not a loss. I didn't scream, I didn't slam anything, but something inside me dropped deep, and then I heard my dad in the background faint low like a radio in the next room. He was there, but just like always, present without standing up. He always steps out of the big decisions, always stays back like peace matters more than truth. I asked again because I needed to hear her say out loud what I'd already seen with my own eyes. Tell me the truth. Do you want me there, or do you think I'm the thing that ruins the picture too? There was a beat of silence. Then my mom answered quietly, almost a whisper, I think you'll understand. It felt like someone closed a door right in my face. Not a slam, not a bang, just a neat, careful shut so I couldn't even argue that you did something. I understand, I said. And I didn't even know what that word tasted like anymore. It wasn't forgiveness, it was clarity. My mom rushed to add more, like she wanted to wrap this up before I could pick it back up and hold it to the light. This wedding, it's a big event. Everything has to be perfect. I'm just worried. If you come, something will happen. You know you're blunt, you ask questions, people will misunderstand. I looked at the window glass. My reflection was faint. I thought about all the nights I stayed up fixing the fallout for other people, all the times I swallowed my own anger so the family could stay peaceful. And I finally heard the truth underneath everything my mom was saying. The wedding wasn't about bringing the family together. The wedding was a performance. And me, the one who asked for the truth, was a liability on their stage. I said one last thing, my voice going a little rough. If you didn't want me there, why not just say it from the start? She didn't answer right away. Then she said very quietly, because I thought you'd understand, like you always do. I let her hang up first. I didn't want her to hear how hard I was breathing. I stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the smell of sawdust and old paint, staring down at my hands built for repair. But this time I knew I can't fix this, not if they've decided my presence is a stain on the white dress. I tossed my phone onto the table. My eyes went to my car keys by the door. Tomorrow, I'd drive to Beaufort. Tomorrow, I'd ask them to their faces, even though I already knew what I was going to get.
Dash. I get it. The way they treat you, it's like a lock they've used your whole life. They just assume you'll swallow it, carry it, stay quiet. I don't want to hurt you more, but I have to ask, did it feel like they were turning you into the villain in their version of the story?
Yes, and the worst part is, they did it so politely. They didn't curse at me. They didn't yell. They just wrote me into this character who's too much, too intense, too difficult, just enough to make my absence sound reasonable. And standing there, I realized if I stayed quiet one more time, I'd start believing the version of me they tell. The next morning it was drizzling. I drove from Savannah to Beaufort in a silence so thick it felt physical. Rain slid down the windshield like strings of beads. The roads were familiar, but the feeling wasn't. I wasn't going home. I was going to a place that used to be home to ask a question I should have asked a long time ago. My parents' Victorian sat on the corner of the old street exactly the way it looked when I was a kid. Stained glass windows, worn wooden steps, a few wind chimes tinkling on the porch. The light inside glowed warm and yellow through the windows. It still looked like a postcard of a cozy family. But the second I turned off the engine, my stomach tightened. Like inside, everything had already been rearranged without leaving space for me. I grabbed my overnight bag and walked up the porch steps, taking a long breath. Through the side window, I saw my dad in the garage, hands greasy, bent over an old outboard motor. That's always been him, fixing tools, fixing engines, fixing anything that doesn't have a heartbeat. But the things in our family, the things that needed someone to stand up and say one sentence, he always stepped back into the shadows. I knocked once and then opened the door like I used to when I was a kid. Mom was in the kitchen, setting out cups, coffee cake, already sliced, humming. Softly, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't called me the night before to tell me to disappear from my sister's wedding day. Dash, you're here. Was the drive tiring? She said, stepping forward like she was going to hug me. I stayed still, coat still on, didn't move. I didn't want that hug. It felt like frosting spread over a cake that had already gone bad. I didn't come for cake, I said. I came to talk. She paused for half a second, then smiled again, thin and tidy. Do you want coffee? I just made a fresh pot. No, I shook my head. I just need the truth. My dad's head appeared from the garage. He wiped his hands on a rag. You staying for dinner? He asked, eyes flicking to me, and then away fast like he was looking at something he didn't want to face straight on. I turned to him and said low and clear, I'm here to ask about the wedding. He went, oh, like he'd just remembered a bolt he hadn't tightened. I've still got something I need to check, he said, and disappeared back into the garage. No argument, no staying, not even a let me hear you out. He retreated like it was muscle memory, so it was just me and Mom in the kitchen. She pulled out a chair for me like she could steer this into a pleasant conversation. I didn't sit. I stayed standing, looking at the dining table, the same table that had heard her say 1,000 times, let your sister have it. Don't make a big deal. You're the older one, you should understand. Tell me straight, I said. Why wasn't I invited? Mom let out a breath and worried at a napkin with her fingers. Dash, you know how Betrayal is. She just wants everything to go smoothly. Colton does too. It's her day. Don't go in circles, I cut in. I'm asking why I didn't even get the right to choose. She looked at me like I was a sharp nail that had scratched her hand. You always make things bigger than they have to be, she said. You ask too much, you pick things apart, you make people uncomfortable. Colton doesn't want drama. My mouth tightened, more tired than amused. When have I ever caused drama at a family gathering, I asked. Mom shrugged. Not caused. But you. You make people tense. You ask things that don't need to be asked. Don't need to be asked. Like debt, like the truth. Like cracks you can ignore until the whole thing collapses. I asked again slowly. So you think my presence is drama? Mom stiffened, and then she said the line that made me realize this wasn't just Colton's idea. I just want Betrayal to have a day where she doesn't have to worry. Where nobody makes her feel small, nobody brings up the past, nobody makes her lose face. I heard the words lose face like metal hitting tile. So Betrayal's feelings get protected, Betrayal's image gets protected, and me, I'm the thing they put away so the picture stays clean. I looked my mother dead in the eye, so you chose for me to disappear. Her eyes blinked fast, her voice softening. Dash, don't think like that. I didn't let her paint another layer over it. I only have one more question, I said. Did Colton ask you to push me out? Mom went quiet for one beat, just one beat, but it was enough. Colton? She started, then stopped. He wants people who support him. He doesn't like being questioned. He wants everything to be cooperative. I nodded once, barely. That was enough. And Dad? I asked. Mom glanced toward the garage door, voice dropping. Your dad just wants peace. He doesn't want trouble. I stood there and suddenly my whole family looked like an old wooden house, still pretty on the outside, held together on the inside by habit and patchwork. Mom is the one who paints it smooth. Dad is the one who hides in the garage to keep things quiet. Betrayal is the one who always gets shielded. And Colton, he's the one holding the script, deciding who gets to stand in the frame. I've spent my whole life as the fixer, but that day I understood they don't want me to fix anything. They want me quiet. I spoke very calmly because the second I raised my voice, it would become, Dash is overreacting again. Fine. I nodded. If you're all so sure my being there would ruin her day, then I won't come. Not the wedding, not the rehearsal, not any party. You can keep your perfect picture. Mom stepped closer, touched my sleeve, her voice suddenly soft, almost pleading. Dash, don't do that. Betrayal is looking at you. She just wants things to go smoothly. I pulled my arm back. Not harsh, just final. You want me gone so things stay peaceful, I said. Then I'll go. But I'm telling you now, when everything falls apart, don't call me to fix it anymore. I'm tired. I don't want to be the duct tape holding together things that are rotten at the core. Mom's face fell. I could tell she wanted to say something, but whatever script she carries in her head didn't have a line for a son drawing a boundary. I turned, grabbed my bag, and walked down the familiar hallway. I glanced once toward the garage. Dad still didn't come out. He didn't step out to say one sentence. Not, don't go. Not, I'm sorry. He chose peace like always. I stepped off the porch. Rain hit my face, cold and straight. I got into my car, shut the door, and when the tires rolled out of the driveway, I felt my chest go light in the bitterest way. Light because I'd stopped trying, bitter because I knew I'd just walked away from a family I'd spent my whole life trying to hold together. On the drive back to Savannah, the rain slapped the windshield like someone knocking. Streetlights smeared into streaks. I thought I'd have quiet, at least for a while. But as the city came into view, blurred and gray, my phone buzzed. A text from Jada, my best friend. Dash you up. Need to talk. Tonight I saw Colton acting real weird at the harbor room. I can't sit on this anymore. I stared at the words for a long time. My heart sped up, not because I was shocked, but because of this feeling. The foundation had been cracked for a long time. I'd been standing outside it, but the splitting sound still found me. For the first time, I didn't know how I was going to respond. Would I step in and fix things like I always do? Or would I stand still and let the truth fall into place on its own?
Nobody screamed in your face, but the way they pushed you out with reason. And what hurts even more is your dad, the one person who should have at least stepped onto the porch and called your name, chose the garage instead. Dash, when you looked toward that garage and he didn't come out, did it feel like you were being left again?
Yes, and it wasn't loud. It was like you're standing in front of a door waiting for the person inside to open it, but it never opens. Not because they don't hear you, because they decide silence is the easiest choice. In that moment, I understood the peace my father always chose was peace bought with me having to carry it alone. And when Jada texted, I realized I was about to get dragged back into my old role. Only this time, I was starting to hate that role. The next morning, I buried myself in work the way people shove their head underwater so they don't have to hear the noise in their own chest. I got to Marlowe House early, flipped on the lights, put on my safety glasses, and started doing the things I could control: sanding, planing, replacing a cracked step, refastening boards that had gone soft with rot. The old house creaked under my boots like it understood what it meant to stand without ever feeling steady. Rain drummed on the metal roof. I worked straight through lunch. I let the sander chew through wood instead of letting questions chew through my head. Out here there was no mom, no awkward, no let your sister have her day. Just sawdust and the steady rhythm of honest labor. But by late afternoon, when my shoulders were burning and the light outside turned that hard golden color, I couldn't pretend anymore. I pulled out my phone, 2 missed calls from Mom, and a new message from Jada Copper and Bloom. 6 p.m. important. I read that word important over and over until my stomach tightened. Jada isn't the type to text like that out of curiosity. If she says important, it means something just touched a live wire. I didn't reply. I just shut off my tools, washed my face, changed into a clean shirt, and went. Copper and Bloom wasn't crowded yet. The bar was dim, lit in warm, amber soft jazz, quieter than the clink of glasses. Jada was already at the counter, tapping her nails against a whiskey glass like she was counting time. She looked me over and said flatly, "Sit down. You look like hell." I gave a thin smile and slid onto the stool. Try getting told by your own family to vanish from a wedding. Jada didn't let me float on that self-deprecating tone. She leaned in, her voice dropping. "You need to see this." She pushed her phone across the bar. On the screen was Colton, clear as day in a suit, his arm wrapped around a woman with platinum hair. They were laughing close in a way you can't call polite. Next photo, Colton's hand sitting way too low on her back, the kind of placement you don't need lessons to recognize as not accidental. Then a short video, Colton leaning in, whispering in her ear, and she tilted her head lips, brushing his jaw like it was familiar. I felt my blood go cold for a beat, but the strange thing was, I wasn't shocked. It was like knocking on a board you already suspect is rotten. The sound comes back hollow, and you realize it's been bad for a long time. You're just finally seeing the rot exposed. "Where was this?" I asked, my voice going rough. "Harbor Room," Jada said. "My friend Marcy, she bartends there. She said she's seen them 3 times this month. Not a one-time mistake. It's a pattern." I stared at the pictures. Colton's smile looked effortless. The kind of smile you only wear when you think you're safe, when you think nobody will dare pull back the curtain. Jada watched me, waiting for me to shoot up from my seat, waiting for rage, waiting for me to say, "Give it to me." I'm driving to Beaufort right now, because that's what I do. I've spent my whole life lunging toward the problem like it's reflex, but I just set the phone down and took a breath. In my head, I saw the spotless white ballroom my family was building. I heard my mother's voice, "Don't make everything about you. Let your sister have her day," and one truth landed clean and brutal. If I bring this to them, I become the one who ruins the wedding. Nobody will remember what Colton did. They'll only remember that Dash wrecked the performance. Jada frowned. "You're not going to tell Brielle?" I shook my head. "Not because I don't love her," I said, and my throat hurt like it had splinters in it, but because I know exactly how they'll spin it. They already wrote my part, annoying and tense, always questioning, embarrassing people. If I walk in right now, I'm signing my name to that role. Jada leaned closer, her voice sharper now. "But Dash, she's your sister. She's about to marry a guy who's like that." I looked at her, and for the first time, I said something I almost never say out loud. I'm tired. I'm tired of being the rescuer when I'm not even allowed to stand in the picture. Jada went quiet for a beat. Then she asked slower, "Who is that woman?" "I don't know," she said, "but she's probably in Colton's circle. Could be a guest, could even show up at the wedding." I nodded faintly, another piece clicking into place in my mind. Colton needed me gone because I asked questions. I look at the parts people try to cover with a tablecloth. And if I'm at that wedding, all it takes is me noticing something off, and I'll pull it into the light. I turned my water glass in my hand without drinking. Part of me wanted to blow everything up, kick in doors, tell the truth, drag Brielle off that stage. But another part, newer, quieter, said, "Don't let them make you the shield one more time." I looked at Jada and said firm, "Send me the pictures, but don't send them to anyone else. I'm keeping them. I'm not detonating this right now." Jada stared at me like she didn't recognize me. "What are you going to do with it?" I said I want proof that I knew. So when it breaks, nobody can say I made it up, that I'm lying. And most of all, I want one thing to be clear: I'm not the one who lit the match. We sat there a little longer. Jada wasn't happy, but she understood. When I stood up to leave, she grabbed my wrist for a second, her voice softening. "Dash, I'm just scared you'll regret not saying something." I looked at her and told her the truth. I've spent my whole life regretting saying something and then getting turned into the bad guy. This time I want to try a different way. I stepped out into Savannah after dark. Spanish moss swayed over the streets, a bus rumbled past, and Colton's smile kept flashing in my head, the smile of someone who thinks he'll never be questioned. I went home and did something that wasn't fixing. I started documenting. I took screenshots, saved timestamps, wrote everything down like I was building a file instead of building peace. And right as I set my phone down, a call came in from Evan, my contractor buddy I'd helped more times than I could count. Dash, Evan said, and he didn't sound like he was joking. "I don't want to freak you out, but your name popped up today in a credit check tied to a deal in Beaufort. You trying to buy something, or is someone using your info?" I went still. The room felt like it dropped 10 degrees. "No," I said, "I'm not buying anything." There was a pause, and then Evan said it slower. "Then you need to check right now. Something's not clean." I hung up with my heart hammering. From the wedding to Colton to my credit, this wasn't about being invited or not anymore. This was something else. Someone had their hands on my identity the way they'd have their hands in my wallet. I sat at my kitchen table, opened my phone, and for the first time in my life, I understood this feeling. The feeling of realizing you weren't just cut out of the picture, you might be getting used as a tool and you didn't even know it.
I can feel the tug of war in you. One part still wants to protect Brielle, and the other part is terrified they'll turn you into the guy who ruined her day. When you decided not to speak up right away, did it feel cruel, or did it feel like the first time you were finally saving yourself?
Both. I felt cruel because she's my sister, but I also felt if I kept rushing in like I always do, I'd be signing another invisible contract, my contract to be the one who carries it. This time I didn't want to carry it anymore. I wanted to look straight at it and keep the proof. If it had to hurt, then let it hurt clean, not because they'd painted me into the villain again. The week before the wedding, my phone turned into a weapon. It wasn't a way to connect anymore. It was how my family controlled me from a distance. My mom's texts came in waves, steady as tapping on glass. "Don't make this harder, just support from afar. Don't make the wedding awkward." Dash, let your sister have her day. Every line was sugar-coated, but underneath was the same command: shut up, step back, disappear. At first, I didn't answer. I didn't trust myself to respond without my voice sharpening. I just worked, came home, ate something quick, then opened the photos Jada sent again. Colton smiling like a man who knows he's being protected, and reminded myself, don't rush in, don't light the match. Then one night, Brielle called. For the first time, after all those photos and posts, my sister's name showed up as a real phone call. No filter, no caption, no big day, just Brielle. I stepped out onto my porch, letting Savannah's hot, damp air wrap around me like a heavy shirt. Hello, I said. Brielle's voice was small, shaky like she was standing in her bedroom afraid someone might hear. Dash, can we talk? Hearing that, can we made my heart soften a little, just a little. Yeah, what's going on? There was a long pause. Then she let out a breath. I saw your RSVP. I frowned. My what? The wedding RSVP, she said. Slow, like she was rereading something that hurt. I saw you declined. It was logged weeks ago. Mom said you're probably busy so you can't make it. I straightened like someone had thrown cold water on me. My whole spine went tight. Brielle, I said very slowly, I never got an invitation. I never got a link. I never RSVP'd to anything. On the other end, it was like she stopped breathing. Then a tiny sound slipped out like a sob swallowed mid-rise. But it's in the system. It has your name. It shows you're not coming. A roar filled my ears. That erased feeling came back, but this time it had a sharper shape. This wasn't just my name missing from pictures. This was someone putting on my face, making my choice for me, speaking for me, then turning it into proof. Has anyone else talked to you about this? I asked. Mom Brielle said, her voice thinning. She said you didn't want pressure. She said you told her to let me have my day. My grip tightened on the phone. In my head I heard wood cracking, not a snap, just that steady creeping splinter. Brielle, I said, forcing my voice not to shake, no one has the right to RSVP for me. I never declined you. I wasn't even invited. She went quiet. I could hear her breathing fast. I didn't want to shove her into the middle, so I didn't say more. But something lit up inside me, bright and ugly. My mother had turned me into the indifferent brother on paper. I hung up, then called my mom immediately. She answered fast, so fast I knew she'd been waiting. Dash who did the RSVP, I cut in. Who logged in and marked declined under my name, silence. Then my mom let out a breath, her voice dipping slightly, the voice she uses when she decides, fine, I'll admit half. Dash, does that really matter? You weren't coming anyway. My throat went hot. I wasn't coming because I wasn't given a choice. I never got an invitation. Answer my question, who RSVP'd for me? Another beat of silence. Then her voice sharpened like I was the one causing trouble. Don't get hung up on little details. I did it so everything would be easier for everyone. So it was you, I said, each word dropping like a nail. You forged my response. Don't call it forged like it's some crime, she snapped back. I did what I had to do. You know you make things tense. You show up. You ask questions. You make Colton uncomfortable. Brielle will get stressed. I'm not letting that happen. I closed my eyes. The whole picture snapped into focus. They didn't just want me out of the wedding. They needed me recorded as someone who didn't care, so their story stayed clean. So when anyone asked, why isn't Dash there, they could hold up a piece of paper and say, see. He declined. My voice went low cold. Do you hear what you just said? You decided my feelings. You decided my actions. You decided the story people get to tell about me. My mom went quiet for a beat. Then she said stiffly, I did it for the family. I laughed hollow, not amused. What kind of family has to manufacture evidence to justify cutting someone out of the picture? She hung up on me, angry and scared at the same time. I stood on my porch watching Spanish moss sway in the wind like long strands of hair. That view used to calm me. That night, it just made me feel like I was suspended between home and not belonging. My phone buzzed again. Evan. Evan said, urgent. Have you checked your credit report yet? Not yet, I said. Check it now. I'm serious. Your name popping up in Beaufort isn't normal. You didn't sign anything, but there was an inquiry. Somebody's testing the door. I went inside and opened my laptop. The smell of wood and old paint in my cottage suddenly felt suffocating. I pulled up my credit report, heart pounding with every click. And there it was, one fresh line, plain as day, a credit inquiry from a mortgage servicer I'd never contacted. Not an approved loan, not a denial. It looked like someone had just touched the lock to see which key might fit. I stared at it until my eyes burned. The shaking in my hands wasn't emotion anymore. It was survival. Jada called right then, her voice tight. Dash, I think we should tell Brielle about Colton, those pictures. No, I said immediately, not loud, but final. If I say anything, they'll make me the reason everything falls apart. If they can RSVP for me, they can do a lot worse. I'm not letting them stamp Dash ruin the wedding on my forehead. But your sister Jada tried. My sister's an adult. I said, my voice catching for half a second before I swallowed it back down. And I'm done being the shield for the truth. I ended the call and started doing something I used to hate. I screenshotted everything, my mom's texts, Brielle's call, the credit inquiry, Colton's photos and video. I made a folder and gave it the driest name I could because if I named it with my feelings, I'd fall apart. I printed it too, stapled it, logged timestamps, wrote dates. I didn't fix anymore. I recorded. Near midnight, Brielle texted me, if you really aren't coming, please don't make a scene. Please, just let me have my day. I read that message and felt a crack open wider in my chest. My sister was begging me to stay quiet without realizing someone else was writing her script. I answered short because if I wrote more, I'd say things that would hurt her right now. You can have your day, but you can't erase me and still expect me to rush in and save you when everything's on fire. I set my phone down, and right then, another message popped up, this one from my dad. Just 3 words that made my whole body go cold. Need to talk. Don't tell Mom. I stared at the screen. I had no idea what he wanted to say, but I knew one thing, if even my dad had to text in secret, there was something bigger in that house than the wedding.
Dash. Hearing your sister plead like that, it makes my heart ache for Brielle and for you. Because it sounds like she's begging you to keep the peace, while you're the one they pushed out to keep the peace for them. And that RSVP being marked for you, this wasn't just cutting you out of the wedding, it was framing you as the uncaring one. In that moment, did it feel like they didn't just want you gone, they wanted you gone with proof?
Exactly, and that's when I realized I was standing in front of something more dangerous than feelings, a narrative campaign. They didn't need me to love them or not love them. They just needed a record, something they could hold up if anyone asked so they could answer for me. And when I saw that credit inquiry, I knew they weren't just telling my story anymore. They might be using me. My dad's text felt like a knock from inside the house. Like even the person who hides the most was panicking, and I knew this was about to spill past the boundaries of a wedding. Dad called me really early. Savannah was still dim. The kind of morning that isn't quite morning yet, just enough light to see the outline of trees and the mist hanging low. I didn't take the call inside. I walked down to the river so the cool wind could slap my face awake. I knew if I heard what he had to say in my kitchen, I'd break something. My dad's voice on the other end was low and shaky, like he was standing in another room and afraid someone might overhear. Dash, he said, we've got a problem. I stopped walking. When my dad says problem, it always means it's already too late to pretend nothing's wrong. What kind of problem? I asked, keeping my voice steady. He went quiet for a beat, then exhaled. The house. Your mom. She doesn't want you to know, but... We opened a line of credit against the Victorian. My chest tightened hard around that sentence. I'd been sending money home regularly. I'd always thought it was helping Mom and Dad stay stable. I never once considered they were borrowing. How long, I asked. Years, he said, as lightly as if he were saying days. After Brielle's breakup, everything got tight. I squeezed my phone until my hand hurt. And you never told me. He rushed in. I didn't want you worrying. Your mom. Don't go in circles. I cut him off the same way I'd cut my mother off. What were those monthly payments I've been sending for? He let out a long, exhausted breath, and I could hear it. That exhaustion wasn't from work. It was the exhaustion of living next to a truth you have to swallow every day. To keep things from falling apart, he said. Keep what from falling apart? My voice turned colder. The mortgage. He didn't answer. The silence lasted long enough that I didn't need the answer out loud. Dad, I said slowly, so I've been paying for something all this time, without even knowing what it was called. He swallowed. We used what you sent to juggle it. Your mom was trying to keep Brielle calm, trying to keep appearances. I closed my eyes. Appearances. Again. My whole life has been built around sacrificing for that word. I thought about what Evan said, somebody's testing the door. And I thought about the credit inquiry. Dad, I asked flat out that inquiry yesterday. Is it connected to this? He inhaled fast like someone caught right where he was hiding something. Yes, he said barely above a whisper. The bank needed renewal paperwork, needed verification, residency. Your mom may have used some of your information. I went still. The river wind cut across my skin, and I was still burning like I'd been doused in boiling oil. Used my information, I repeated slow. Used it, how he immediately tried to patch it, just so they don't call the loan, just to buy more time. Your mom isn't trying to hurt you, she's just scared. Scared. A short, bitter laugh slipped out of me. I thought about the forged RSVP. About my mom's I did what I had to do. And I saw a straight line connecting everything. They don't ask permission because they're sure I'll take it. They don't tell me because they're sure I'll understand. They write for me because they're sure I'll stay quiet. So I said, voice flat, the wedding isn't just a wedding, it's cover. After the wedding, everything will surface. He didn't answer, and that silence was the clearest answer of all. I took a deep breath. I need paperwork, I said. All of it. Statements, contracts, signatures, everything. He hesitated. I'll get what I can. But Dash, don't let your mom know I called, please. Hearing him say please hit me in a strange way. I've never heard my dad beg me for anything except don't make it bigger. But this time it was a plea soaked in fear. I didn't give him a speech. I just said I need the truth. And I need it before somebody has time to shred it. I hung up and stood at the river for a long time. The sky had brightened, but it felt like something in my head went darker. I thought about every payment I'd sent, every time my mom said family, every time my dad disappeared into the garage. And now my dad, the quietest person in the house, was telling me my mom might have touched my identity. I went home and called Evan immediately. Evan didn't waste time on questions. He went straight into action like a guy who's learned how to handle trouble before trouble swallows you whole. Listen to me, Evan said. Freeze your credit right now, set alerts, pull your full report, call every place that ran an inquiry, and you have to save everything. If they used your info, you need a record before paperwork disappears. I did exactly what he said. I opened my laptop. I turned my kitchen table into a war room. I created folders labeled like someone being forced to become his own lawyer, wedding credit activity, dad's call. Colton evidence, I printed everything. I clipped it. I wrote dates and times. I screenshot the alerts. I did it with cold logic because if I let my emotions lead, I would break. That afternoon, I called Aunt Loretta. She's one of the only people in my family who doesn't get lulled by my mother's voice. She sees through the shine. Loretta, I said I need you on my side. Something's about to blow, and I can't be alone in a room with them. She didn't sound surprised. She just exhaled like she'd been waiting for this day for a long time. I've been waiting for you to say that, she told me. Your mother's been walking on water too long. This family doesn't get to borrow your peace to protect their pride. My throat tightened. All I managed was thank you. She said it right away. Keep receipts, keep proof, keep everything. What they're best at is telling a story that makes you look like the problem. Don't give them the chance. That night, my house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator cycling. At 11:08, my mom texted, "Tomorrow is your sister's day. Don't interfere, don't show up, don't call anyone. Let her have what she deserves." I read that message twice. It wasn't a request. It was an order, and underneath that order was something very clear: fear. I closed my laptop, leaned back in my chair, breathing slow. I didn't feel like a son who was angry anymore. I felt like someone staring at a case file, a case where my family was both the victim of their own choices and the people who dragged me into it without asking. I whispered to myself like I was shutting a door inside my chest tomorrow. The truth will choose its own moment. And for the first time in my life, I didn't run into the fire to put it out. I didn't run away from it either. I stood still and let the flames meet their oxygen.
Dash, I really do understand the pain and the headspace you're in. Because this isn't just being cut out of a wedding, it's being pulled into a debt, a file, an identity that's being borrowed without you ever nodding yes. And the coldest part is your mom texting, "Don't call anyone." That isn't protecting Betrayal anymore. It sounds like trying to keep a lid on a pot that's about to boil over. When you sat there with that stack of paperwork and started naming folders, did it feel like you were preparing for a fight your own family shoved you into?
Yes, but it was also the first time I understood if I don't prepare, they'll prepare for me. They already RSVP'd for me, they can narrate me too. I don't want to wake up one day and find my name on paperwork I never signed. I don't want revenge. I just want for the first time to live like a person who's allowed to say no without apologizing. And if the truth explodes tomorrow, I won't be the one holding the match, but I will be the one with enough proof that it can't get dumped on me. On the wedding day, I followed every word my mom texted, silent, invisible, and nowhere near Hilton Head. I didn't rush to Beaufort. I didn't call Betrayal. I didn't text anyone. I left my phone face down on the table like a form of self-discipline, like if I so much as looked at the screen, I'd get dragged back into my old role, the fixer, the fire stopper, the one responsible for things he never lit. I found busy work around the house, tightening the hinge on the back door, replacing a loose outlet trimming branches that were scraping the roof. I kept my hands occupied so my mind wouldn't sprint. I tried to treat it like a normal day, a day where I was just Dash, not the problem in the Mercer family. But by late afternoon, texts started falling like heavy rain. From an old neighbor in Beaufort, Dash, have you seen this? From a client I used to work for. There's a clip on the news from your family's wedding. Oh my God, from an unknown number, are you Dash? Are you okay? Everyone's talking about it. I stood frozen in my living room staring at those blinking lines while my heart pounded like somebody was knocking inside my chest. I still didn't pick up my phone. I held onto the rule I'd set for myself, don't rush in. Then Evan's text popped up short and sharp. Turn on the TV. Now, I put on the local news. And everything hit me in a shaky video ballroom lights, glaring gold people shouting over music that had been cut off mid-beat. A sea of white dresses, white roses, faces packed tight like an audience watching a show. In the center of the frame, Betrayal. My sister in a wedding dress that looked wrinkled like it had been dragged across the floor. Mascara streaked black down her cheeks, eyes red-mouthed, screaming something the mic didn't catch clearly. Just sobs and broken pieces of words, lies. You lied. Colton was right up on her face, flushed collar loose yanking at his tie like it was choking him. He shouted, voice raw like a man getting unmasked in front of a crowd. Set up humiliated. The anchor kept talking in that calm, even tone like she was reading the weather, and that calm made me colder. An altercation broke out at the Sea Pine Grand Ballroom after the bride reportedly received evidence of an affair. Evidence of an affair. I knew exactly what that was, those pictures Jada sent me. And what numbed me was this, I hadn't brought them into that ballroom, someone else did. The truth found its own way in exactly like I'd said it would, and then it happened. Colton raised his hand, a fast swing, sharp, effortless, no hesitation like a habit, not a sudden outburst. Smack. The sound cracked so loud I felt it through the screen, through my house, through my ribs. The room screamed. The camera jolted. Someone yelled, "Oh my God!" A woman shrieked. People surged forward. Betrayal staggered one hand to her face, eyes wide with disbelief at what had just happened in front of hundreds of people. And in the background, I caught a glimpse of my mom. She didn't rush to hold her daughter. She stood there, hands clamped over her mouth, face a paper white. But the panic in her eyes wasn't only because Betrayal had been hit. It was because the performance had shattered. My dad appeared in the corner of the frame, like always stepping forward, like he meant to do something. then getting pulled back by someone else, awkward, helpless, like a man who doesn't know where to stand when the truth has nowhere left to hide. Then red and blue lights bled into the ballroom. Police, the reporter continued. Police are on scene and investigating an assault. I stood in my living room, gripping the remote until it hurt, heart-hammering, mouth dry like sand. There was only one instinct in my head, that's my sister. Even if she let them cut me out of the picture, she's still my sister. My phone started vibrating nonstop. I didn't even have to look to know who it was. Then it showed up clearly, Mom. I let it ring a beat, 2 beats, 3. The vibration sounded like the past knocking. I answered. My mom's voice broke immediately, crying, gasping. Dash, please, you have to come. Brielle needs you. The kids need you. Oh my God, Dash, you have to help us. I closed my eyes. If this had been me a few years ago, I would have grabbed my keys. I would have run to my car. I would have gotten there to clean up the wreckage, to block, to speak for them, to apologize for them, to force everything back into peace. But I remembered her text at 11:08 last night. Don't interfere. Don't show up. Don't call anyone. I opened my eyes. My voice was so steady it surprised even me. Mom, I said you told me I wasn't allowed to come. You told me to stay out of it. I did exactly what you wanted. Dash, this is different, she sobbed. No, I cut in. Not harsh, just solid. It's the same. You only call me when you need someone to absorb the fallout. I'm not coming there to save the image you've been protecting. There was silence for a few seconds, like she'd just had the control button ripped out of her hand. Then she said it half pleading, half commanding. You're her brother. You have to. I swallowed the tremor. I didn't want to become heartless. I just didn't want to get used. I'll help the right way, I said. If Brielle needs a lawyer, if the kids need somewhere safe, I'll handle that from here. But I'm not coming there to be the mop for your shattered performance. My mom choked. I heard voices in the background, maybe relatives, maybe hotel staff. Everything was chaos. And I knew right now they wanted me there to play the mature big brother, to glue the image back together. I added one more sentence, slow and clear. You chose for me not to belong to today, so don't drag me in just because today isn't pretty anymore. I hung up. Right after that, Evan texted, the bank's starting to flag your parents' line. After today, press plus drama, they might call the balance due. Brace yourself. Then my dad's text came through, short enough to scare me. Everything's coming due. Your mom hasn't told you everything. I looked at my kitchen table, the one where I'd clipped files together, where I'd labeled folders. I opened the drawer and pulled the stack out like it was muscle memory. And one thing became painfully, strangely clear, something that hurt and freed me at the same time. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the first one to react when my family caught fire. And after tonight, nothing was going back to the way it was.
Dash, I honestly don't even know what the right words are, because that scene, your sister getting slapped in front of a whole room, this is beyond family drama. That's violence. And hearing you hang up while still saying I'll help the right way. I can hear that you still care, and I can also hear you fighting not to get dragged back into that old loop. But I'm sure 2 things were battling inside you, the instinct to run and hold Brielle, and the memory of that text, don't interfere. Dash. When your mom called, were your hands shaking?
They were, shaking the way they used to shake when I was a kid, standing in front of something I couldn't fix, but still being told I had to fix it. I wanted to run. I wanted to pull Brielle out of there right then. But I also knew if I showed up, they'd turn me into the life raft for everything. Not just for Brielle, but for my mom, for appearances, for the whole story they were trying to protect. I still love my sister, but I can't keep loving her in a way that destroys me. And for the first time, I chose to love her through boundaries, by helping what actually needed help. Safety, legal protection, the kids, instead of helping people save face. That night I didn't sleep, not because I was curious about how they'd spin it, but because that sound kept replaying in my head, the slap. One clean, cold crack, like a period at the end of every excuse. I sat at my kitchen table until almost sunrise, staring at the stack of folders I'd built. Wedding, credit activity, dad's call, Colton evidence. Those dry labels shouldn't exist in a normal person's life. But for me, they were a life raft, the only way not to get crushed under a story somebody else wrote. My phone blew up like a small fire. Texts, missed calls, voicemails piling up. My mom called over and over, then aunts and uncles, then relatives who don't remember where I live the other 11 months of the year. Some texted about protecting the family's honor. Some demanded I get there immediately. Some came in my mother's exact tone, "Don't make this worse." I didn't answer, not because I didn't care, because I was holding on to the only rule that let me breathe. Everything goes through truth, not through panic. Early morning, Evan called back. I picked up because Evan doesn't call to manipulate me. "Listen," he said, "did you freeze your credit?" "Yeah, keep it frozen. Now send me the inquiry details. I'll help you verify the source. If there are signs of identity misuse, you need a clean timeline. Don't let them get ahead of the story." I opened my laptop and sent it. I did everything like someone stacking sandbags before the flood, one by one. Nothing dramatic, nothing heroic, just necessary. After that, I called Aunt Loretta. She answered right away, voice steady, like she'd never trembled in any storm this family has ever made. "I've been waiting. Have you heard?" I asked. "The whole town has," she said. "And I know exactly what your mother is going to do next. I didn't have to ask what. I've watched it my whole life. They shift the spotlight. They turn the story from Betrayal was hit into Dash didn't show up. They make the victim background noise and make the image the main event. I need you as a witness," I said. "Not for court yet, for truth. I don't want to be trapped alone in a room with them. I don't want them saying I'm emotional and turning me into the unstable one." Loretta didn't hesitate. "Right. You cannot be alone with them, and you cannot talk through feelings. You talk through paper, through texts, through evidence." I exhaled, and for the first time, I felt like an adult in this family was saying what I needed to hear, not what they needed me to believe. Around noon, Brielle called. Seeing her name on my screen tightened my chest. This time there was no "don't make a scene." This was just a name, bare stripped down like a younger sister falling off a ledge. I answered, "Dash." Brielle's voice was raw, like she'd been crying for hours. Behind her were messy sounds, people moving, kids' voices, a door opening and shutting. Are you okay?" I swallowed. "I'm okay. How about you?" She went quiet for a beat. Then a shaky breath escaped her, like saying, "I'm not okay" out loud would make her break. "I don't know," Brielle said, voice cracking. "I didn't know it would turn into this. I didn't know you never RSVP'd. I closed my eyes. The ballroom flashed behind my eyelids, then the river at dawn, then my mom's 11:08 text. It all braided together like a noose. "Brielle," I said slowly, "the most important thing right now is that you're safe. Where are you? Is someone with you?" "I'm in a hotel room," she said. "Mom is here. And everyone." That word, everyone, sounded like a net, and I chose not to step into it. "Listen to me," I said. "If you want to do this the right way, you need a quiet place. You need legal representation, and you need to not let anyone speak for you." Brielle started crying. Can you come?" I went quiet for a few seconds. This was the hardest part. Not because I didn't love her, because I understood that if I showed up, Mom would turn it into Dash came to save the family. And everything else, the forged RSVP, the credit inquiry, the line of credit would get swept under the rug. So I told her the truth without turning cold. "I will help," I said, "but I'm going to help in the way that keeps you safest. I'm not coming there to fight with Mom or clean up the image. I'll get you a lawyer. I'll cover a place to stay if you want out. I'll take the kids if you need. But you have to tell me, what do you want, safety or everything looking okay?" Brielle hiccuped through tears. I want to breathe." "Then you have to leave the room full of people who are speaking for you," I said, my voice softening. "Text me your location. I'll send someone. Loretta will come too." I heard her inhale like a person being given permission to believe she has rights. "Dash," she whispered, "I'm sorry." I didn't answer right away, because sorry doesn't undo a slap. Sorry doesn't undo years of being erased, but it was a door. "I hear you," I said finally. "I don't need you to apologize for me to love you. I just need you to understand I can't keep getting used. If you want me beside you, you have to let me stand beside you with the truth, not with Mom's script." Brielle went quiet, then said very softly, "I understand." After I hung up, I didn't feel lighter. I just felt clear. I forwarded every text, voicemail, and threat from my mom to Loretta. I sent Evan the inquiry timeline. I documented my call with Brielle, time content, who was in the room. I was doing things I used to hate, turning emotion into data. Late afternoon, my dad texted one line. The bank called. Your mom's panicking. She says you have to unfreeze your credit to save the house. I stared at it, and instead of anger, a cold calm settled in me. Because this was the loop they wanted. Use the wedding as cover, use the shock as the excuse, then drag me in so I pay the price. I texted my dad back short, I'm not unfreezing it, I'm not signing anything, I'm not talking without paperwork. A minute later, my mom texted long, half-sobbing, half-commanding dash. If you do this, you're killing this whole family. You want your sister to suffer more, you want people laughing at us. Get here now. Don't make this big. Don't let everything collapse. I read it. Then I set my phone down. I stood in my own kitchen where the smell of old wood and fresh paint mixed together the smell I'd always believed meant repair. And I realized some things can't be fixed by rushing in. Some things can only be saved by stopping. That night, I called a local attorney Evan recommended not to get revenge, but to lock the doors the right way. I scheduled a consult. I gathered documents. I prepared questions. And before I went to bed for the first time I actually meant to sleep, I opened the ballroom clip one more time. Not to punish myself. To remind myself if a family can prioritize appearances so much they can look past that slap, then they can prioritize appearances enough to use me like a wallet. I shut the screen off. I looked out the window at Spanish moss swaying in the dark. And I promised myself something clean as a fresh pencil line on wood. Tomorrow, I'm not stepping back into the old role. No matter how much they cry, call, or blame me, I'm only moving in one direction. Now the direction of truth and the line I've drawn.
Yeah, I understand. That's the most painful kind of maturity. You still love them, but you don't let them use that love to tie you up anymore. And I see something else too. You didn't abandon Brielle. You just refused to be the person who saves the image. You chose to save safety for your sister, for yourself, and even for the truth. But after you booked the attorney, after you said, I'm not unfreezing my credit, were you scared they'd turn around and do something worse, scared they'd paint you as the ungrateful villain in front of the whole town?
Yes, I was scared, because I've watched them do it over the smallest things. If they could pull off an RSVP, they could pull off anything. And with something this big, they'd do it faster. But I also knew if fear made me fold, I'd live my whole life trapped inside that old snare of don't make it a big deal. And that snare? It doesn't just keep one wedding peaceful. It keeps an entire way of life intact, the kind where I'm always the one who sacrifices so everyone else can look fine. I don't care how the town understands me anymore. I just want for the first time to understand who I am and where I stand. The next morning I woke up with a strange feeling. Not relief, not despair. More like standing in front of a rotting wall and finally accepting you can't paint over it and pretend it's solid. You have to take it down one brick at a time. My phone had another flood of messages waiting. I didn't read them right away. I made coffee, sat down, opened my laptop, and looked at my to-do list like someone saving himself with structure. Evan sent a checklist request, the full detailed reports. Keep the credit, freeze in place, dispute anything unauthorized if needed, keep a log. Loretta texted, I'm ready, you say when I go. The attorney I'd booked confirmed my consult by email. I moved slowly on purpose. Then Brielle called again. This time her voice wasn't shattered. It was still hoarse, but there was something else in it. An exhaustion so deep it forces you to choose life. I'm in the bathroom, she whispered. I don't want them to hear. I leaned back in my chair. Talk to me. Colton's being held for a statement, she said. Mom is trying to make it look like a misunderstanding. She says if I say anything to the police, the media will destroy me. And destroy the whole family. I closed my eyes. I wasn't surprised. I just felt that slow aching cut. My mother still cared more about how people looked at them than how her daughter was treated. What do you want? I asked. I kept my voice gentle, but I didn't let it slide into you should or you have to. I let her have the right to choose. Brielle went quiet for a beat. I could hear water dripping. Then she said, barely above a breath, "I want out." 4 words, and they carried the weight of a lifetime of being told not to make a big deal. "Okay," I said immediately. "Listen to me. Grab your personal documents and the kids' IDs, birth certificates, insurance cards, anything. Pack only what you need. Don't argue. Don't explain. Keep it simple." But Mom Brielle choked. "I've got it," I said. "Loretta will come get you. Not alone. She'll be a witness. You only have to do one thing: step out of the room that's trapping you with words." Brielle's breathing sped up like someone had cracked a window open. "Dash, are you mad at me?" she asked, and the question landed like a thin piece of paper. I looked out the window. Spanish moss swayed. I pictured my sister in that wrinkled dress. I pictured the text, "Don't make a scene." I pictured the slap. "I'm mad at the system," I said. "I'm mad at the way they taught you that peace means silence. But you're my sister. I just need you alive." Brielle started crying, only this time it wasn't the kind that explodes. It was the kind that comes after holding your breath for too long. After I hung up, I called Loretta. She didn't ask why. She asked where. I sent the location and timing and told her to keep her voice calm. Loretta texted back, "Don't worry. I'm not coming to fight. I'm coming to pull my niece out of a hole." Then I called the attorney and asked to move the consult sooner. I said it plainly possible identity misuse tied to credit activity and a domestic violence incident at a public event. The attorney told me, "Keep every document. Don't talk by phone if you can move it to writing, and do not sign anything." Hearing "do not sign anything" felt like somebody bracing my back. Around noon, my mom called. I let it ring. Then I answered, but I put it on speaker and opened my notes app to log the time. Not because I wanted to catch her, because I wasn't allowing words to float away anymore and come back later, as I never said that. "Dash!" she shouted immediately, half sobbing, half furious. "What are you doing? Are you telling Brielle to leave? Do you know what people are saying?" I inhaled. I picked my words the way I pick wood, not for emotion, for strength. "Mom," I said, "I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm helping Brielle be safe." "Safe? You're blowing this up," she snapped. "A husband and wife arguing." "No," I cut in, still calm. "That's violence. There's video, there are police. No one gets to call a slap in front of hundreds of people. An argument." She went quiet for a beat, then pivoted like she always does when truth gets too sharp. "Do you understand the bank is pressing us?" She fired off. "The house. If you don't cooperate, we'll all be out on the street. Is that what you want? Are you trying to punish me?" That word "punish" made the play obvious, turning my boundary into cruelty. "I'm not punishing anyone," I said. "I'm just not letting my identity be used anymore. I'm not unfreezing my credit. I'm not signing. I need paperwork. I need the truth." "What did I do wrong?" she screamed. "I did it all for Brielle." "If it's for Brielle, why was Brielle hit in front of 100 people and you're still talking about what people will think?" I asked. That question silenced her. A long pause. I heard her breathing. I heard someone else talking faintly in the background, maybe an aunt, maybe a cousin. I knew they were standing around her, helping her find the next angle. Then my mom's voice changed, smaller, sweeter. The coaxing voice. "Dash, come here, let's talk. We're family. We handle things in the family." I looked at the folders on my table. I heard Loretta's rule, "Don't be alone with them." I heard Evan's warning, "Don't let them get ahead of the story." "No," I said. "I'll only communicate in writing with a witness. If you want to talk, email me and send copies of any documents tied to that line of credit." Her tone flipped instantly like a mask dropping. "You're humiliating me." I answered quietly but solid. "No, Mom, truth doesn't humiliate anyone. Only hiding does." She hung up. I sat still for a few seconds. My heart was still racing, but I wasn't shaking the way I used to. I felt sad, yes, but I also felt something I almost never feel. I was standing upright without bracing for impact. Later that afternoon, Loretta texted, "Got Brielle. Kids are okay. We're on our way." I exhaled like I'd just paid off an invisible debt. I didn't run over to be a hero. I stayed in my kitchen, poured a glass of water, watched sunlight stretch across the floor, and felt like for the first time I was doing the right thing in the right order. Save the person. First, save the reputation later. And real reputation only comes from how you protect the vulnerable. That night, Brielle called again. Quietly, "Thank you. I said I'm here. But remember this, you don't have to stay silent to be loved. You don't have to look perfect to be safe." She cried softly. I didn't realize what kind of life I've been living. Me either, I told her honestly. I didn't realize what kind of life I was living until I stopped. After that call, I opened my folders again and rebuilt the timeline, the forged RSVP, my mom's text, the credit inquiry, my dad's dawn, call the wedding clip, the plea for help, the plan to get Brielle out. I stared at it like a map, not a revenge map, a way out map. And at the bottom corner of a page, I wrote one line for myself, not to post, not for anyone to read, just so I wouldn't forget I'm not the fire extinguisher for people who love playing with matches.
Save the person first, save the reputation later. When you said that, I think anyone listening could feel it. It's the simplest kind of right. And it's the one people often do backwards when they're afraid of outside eyes. And you did something incredibly hard. You didn't abandon your family. You abandoned the way your family used you. Before we close, I want to ask you one last thing. Not to reopen the wound, but to understand something deeper after all of this. Do you still call that place home? Or are you building a new definition of home now made of boundaries, truth, and people who don't ask you to disappear?
I think home isn't an address anymore. It's the place where I don't have to fold myself smaller so other people can feel comfortable. It's where I can say no without being called selfish. It's where truth isn't treated like destruction. I'm still my parents' son, still Brielle's brother. I still care. But I'm not the life raft they throw out only when they're afraid of sinking. And for the first time, I can see I'm not just surviving my family, I'm living for myself.
Dash, thank you for trusting us with your story tonight, speaking it plainly, even when it hurts. Not everyone can stay steady while naming the things that broke them. So truly thank you. And to everyone who stayed with us to the very end, thank you for listening. Dash's story leaves something simple and sharp. You can love your family, but you can't spend your whole life as the one who carries everything for them. When people only remember you when they need help, you have to learn to say no, not to win, not to punish, but to keep yourself intact.